Hello. In Dyslexia Part 1, we will discuss the prevalence of dyslexia in reading concerns and in the general population, different definitions of dyslexia, and the signs of reading concerns across development. Dyslexia is by far the most common reading disability. At least 70 to 80% of children with reading disabilities have trouble with accurate and fluent word recognition. Most, but not all, children who have dyslexia have a core phonological deficit that is often accompanied by a fluency or naming deficit and secondary concerns in reading comprehension, largely due to not being able to read and thus having less access and experience with language and books. Reading ability is distributed across a normal curve. As we've talked about earlier, reading disability also exists on a continuum from mild to more severe. Estimates of the prevalence of dyslexia vary dramatically depending on where the cut point is set by researchers. In recent studies on dyslexia, the prevalence ranged from 17% in the Connecticut longitudinal study at Yale University to 11% in an epidemiology study by the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, or to as few as 5% in studies restrictive to the most severe cases of dyslexia. Dyslexia can also coexist with other disabilities, influencing the severity of concern a student might have and their need for supports. Severity of reading concerns and number and severity of coexisting concerns all need to be considered when understanding need for special education services and what those services need to involve. Beginning on page 2, in our reading the Mikiak and Fletcher article assigned this week, the authors outlined the prominent definitions of dyslexia and discussed their similarities and differences. All definitions agree that dyslexia involves students who struggle with basic reading and spelling skills, word recognition skills, students who score in the lower part of the reading skills normal distribution. The authors note that much of the debate around dyslexia has centered around diagnostic criteria and particularly the role of IQ as part of the criteria. All definitions would exclude children with cognitive impairments and children who did not have access to quality instruction. The authors go on to make a strong case for why IQ is not a helpful variable for understanding who is dyslexic, not a strong marker of prognosis, or helpful in understanding how to support them instructionally, not a predictor of growth in response to intervention. As we've talked about, IQ is not required for diagnosis in a school setting, and as this article makes clear, not important in diagnosis in general. Let's look at the most widely accepted definition of dyslexia, IDA's definition. This definition is often cited by dyslexia researchers and leaders and is used in many state laws, including Ohio, where I am from. IDA is currently considering revising it, so stay tuned. Let's look at each component of this definition, as it is helpful in understanding and supporting children with dyslexia. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. Numerous studies have confirmed that children and adults with dyslexia process reading differently, inefficiently. Humans with dyslexia show high levels of right side activation. As we have discussed, the primary reading circuits are on the left hemisphere of the brain. The good news is the brain is incredibly plastic, and with intensive, effective instruction, we can rewire the dyslexic brain. More on this in the Reading Rockets video that you will view next. Dyslexia is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. The great majority of reading concerns, dyslexia, or just struggling readers, is in the area of word recognition. All parts of reading are important, but we know word recognition skills are hard for many children and are a particular challenge for children with dyslexia. Thus, our instruction in word recognition, especially in the early years of school, must be effective and intentional. The difficulties with word recognition skills typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language. As we talked about in week 5, understanding and supporting a child's phonological skill development is crucial for helping them learn to read well. For children who struggle with reading, it is an imperative and an area where intensive instruction will likely be needed. Phonological concerns are thought of as a hallmark of dyslexia. As we discussed, some children with dyslexia may not have phonological concerns, but still have difficulty with fluency or naming speed. There currently is a debate as to if fluency is a unique disability, a subtype of dyslexia, or an issue of severity of dyslexia. The bottom line is to understand the needs of the students you are working with, understanding the skills that need to be explored through assessment, and letting the results of strong assessment guide your instructional planning. Often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Low reading achievement in dyslexia is not due to a cognitive impairment or lack of quality instruction. This is why the MTSS model is such an important model in both supporting all children learning to read well and also understanding reading disability. There are children who look like they are dyslexic due to having received poor instruction, instructional casualties. Children who truly have dyslexia are those who received quality instruction and intervention but still struggle. Significant and persistent reading concern. Especially when dyslexia is not addressed early, secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. In early elementary school, much of the work of language comprehension is done orally, so even children who are not able to read well can still benefit from oral language comprehension work. As children get older, more and more language comprehension, vocabulary, background knowledge, interesting syntax, etc., is obtained by reading. While we are working on providing children with dyslexia the code, we need to also keep in mind they need to have access to instruction that also builds their language comprehension skills. Truly understanding reading disability, dyslexia, must be done in the context of a child's response to robust intervention. Early identification of reading concerns is important, as early intervention is highly effective in reducing the negative impact of dyslexia on a child's reading development and self-concept as a reader and competent student. Early screening is crucial to identifying students who may need additional support with key reading skills. Early signs of future reading concern can be seen before a child goes to school. Preschool signs of potential reading concern include later learning to talk, preferring gestures to language to communicate needs, mixing up pronunciations of words, so saying things like spaghetti for spaghetti, for a longer period of time than is typical, and despite multiple corrections. Persistent trouble with difficult speech sounds such as th, l, and w. Again, longer amount of time compared to most children. Many children with dyslexia at this age appear disinterested in books, wordplay, and learning the alphabet. Language comprehension may also be a concern. Difficulty understanding directions or questions. Language development concerns, both comprehension and expression, is a key risk factor for later reading problems, and children should be screened and supported in the preschool years. Key signs of early reading difficulty that can be seen in kindergarten and first grade include slow to learn letter names and sounds, difficulty with phonemic awareness, difficulty with decoding beginning words, and poor spelling. In second and third grade, the key signs to look for are, again, difficulty with phonemic awareness, laborious reading that's not fluent, difficulty with sounding out words, often recalling incorrect sounds for letters or letter patterns, poor spelling, often you can also see poor handwriting, and an avoidance of reading and writing activities. There are several indicators to look for in children who may have dyslexia in the intermediate grades and into high school. Hopefully by then, children would have been identified and supported, but with or without support, some key indicators are often seen. The core difficulty, reading printed words accurately and fluently, persists for many children with dyslexia. This may be masked on some reading tasks at this age, especially if they did receive quality intervention, but is typically evident on time tests and when reading words in lists out of context. Older children with dyslexia continue to be challenged by spelling and often are much better comprehending information when it's presented orally rather than written.